meeting to order. This meeting is called to order in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and the Highland Park Planet on February 3rd, 2025, and was posted on the Borough website at www.hpborough.com and on the bulletin board at Borough Hall 221 South 5th Avenue, Highland Park, New Jersey, and has remained continuously posted as required by law. Fire exits are to the left and right. Please remember to speak into your microphones when participating. Can we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Hand.
Here.
Mr. Brusher.
Here.
Mr. Chin.
Here.
Mr. Hale.
Here.
Mr. Malay.
Here.
Mr. Stern Cardinal.
Here.
Mr. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Thomas.
Here.
Mr. Costanza.
Here.
Okay, thank you very much. We have a new matter on the agenda, so we'll have the applicant, unless anyone has any urgent business, we'll have the applicant come up and present on SYC Realty LLC 229 and 231 Raritan Avenue on a minor site plan with C variances and requests for waiver of submission requirements. Before we get started, Matt, did you want to? Do we have? I mean, Matt's going to be standing by.
Yes. And you need to step down.
Do you mind stepping down for the application?
I'll take it personally, Matt.
Having a seat in the gallery.
Good evening, David James from the firm Lawrence Goldman and Spitzer.
I don't know if it's working or not.
I can hear the reverb if you speak
Any?
into the microphone.
All right.
Okay, all right, well, let's try like this. So I guess we will just start off with a little bit of a summary.
Well, I think that the matter needs to be, Chris, do you have a comment with regard to the completeness issue?
Yeah, I'm just looking for my memo.
Just give us 1 second.
Absolutely.
I think the January 6th memo recommended it was complete.
That's right, that's what I think I like to have before. So we have, I think it's the January 6th memo, one of the three that you've had.
So our first step of the process is
Yeah, January 6th, yeah.
hearing from our planner on his recommendations on whether the applicant's application should be deemed complete for proceeding forward.
It's my review memorandum dated February 4th, 2025. Applicant seeking a waiver of several items on the minor site plan checklist, outdoor lighting plan. Outdoor lighting plan, screening and landscaping, environmental impact statement, traffic impact analysis, and street furniture and urban design inventory. Given the scope of the project, 176 square feet, I think the board has more than enough information to be able to act on the application. So I recommend the board grant the requested waivers and formally deem the application complete.
Thank you, Mr. Costanza. Madam Chair, if there's any questions of Mr. Costanza with the board, I can ask them now. If not, it would be appropriate to seek a motion to deem the application complete, granting the waivers requested.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chin, did you have a question?
Oh, sorry.
I just have a motion to deem it complete.
Oh, there we go.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. I saw Alan go first, so second by Alan. Roll call, please.
Mr. Brusher.
Yes.
Mr. Chin.
Yes.
Mr. Hale. Oh, sorry. Mr. Malay.
Yes.
Mr. Stern Cardinal.
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Ms. Hand.
Yes. So with the complete application,
And we're set to go. Now your turn.
Absolutely, thank you. So yeah, I guess just to give a quick introduction, as I'm sure you're all aware, we're here tonight for the Jerusalem Pizza site, which is located in the borough's downtown area at 229, 231 Raritan Ave. So essentially what's happened is that around this time last year, there was an internal fire. When it came time to renovate the floor plan, the bathroom needed to be increased to comply with the ADA requirements. As a result, the kitchen area as well as the seating area was reduced. So the seating area previously had 40 seats and is now only going to have 30 seats. And then the purpose of this application tonight is essentially to create a usable kitchen. So the applicant is seeking site plan approval for a 176.33 kitchen addition that will be at the back of the Jerusalem Pizza building. So in Mr. Cosenza's review memorandum, he pointed out that there were a few pre-existing non-conforming conditions. The rear yard setback from the rear building, impervious coverage, and the number of parking spaces. Mr. Cosenza indicated that should the board deem C variance relief is required, the applicant would need to request it. There is no question that these conditions are pre-existing the ordinance, and Mr. Cosenza also pointed out that none of these conditions are exacerbated by the project. So we contend that there is no need for relief. However, if the board determines otherwise, we will be able to discuss that tonight. There are also other items in Mr. Cosenza's review memorandum, which we will discuss through the testimony of our engineer, Mark Lieber. But I think it would be best to start with Shalom Cohen to just give us some background.
Sir, do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you be kind enough to state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address for the record? Yeah, there you go. It's actually working now.
Okay. My name is Shalom Cohen. I own.
Would you be kind enough to, for the record, to spell your last name?
My last name is Cohen.
You.
My first name is Shalom. I own China Lee and Jerusalem Pizza. And we bought the building about 10 years ago, which is SYC Realty. February of last year, we had a fire at Jerusalem Pizza and China Lee. So we decided to redo all the restaurants. But Jerusalem Pizza, as we started building it, we had to comply with the restroom to make it accessible. So they took half the kitchen into the restroom to make the big enough restroom. As a result, the kitchen became half the size. It's not workable. So we decided to go out and to build out.
And so in order to do so, I believe you hired Rise Architecture to create the architectural plans that we have submitted to the board.
Yes, everything, we have we have the engineers, we have the plans, everything is set.
So can you just give us a little background about what's on the site? So there's two buildings. We're dealing with the building in the front.
There's two buildings on the right side. If you're looking at the building, on the right side is the Jerusalem Pizza. Going next is the entrance to the apartments on the top. To the left is China Lee. On top of the Jerusalem Pizza, there is an apartment, 3-bedroom apartment. On the left side of that is another apartment with 3 bedrooms. Also on top of China Lee, there are 2 apartments. Behind the building, the main building, is another building. On the first floor, we use it for Jerusalem Pizza, the first floor, and the second floor is the recording studio.
So just to confirm, that first floor is that storage for Jerusalem Pizza, right?
Yeah.
And so as far as, just to address some of the comments in Mr. Cosenza's report, that area in between, the big area in between those two buildings, what's that used for?
So that's for parking, for my parking. I come in the morning, I park my car.
And then no one else is permitted to park in back there, right?
Nobody, there's no parking for anybody.
And
It's
so,
only street parking. For the customers, for both of the stores, it's only street parking. And also across the street, we have a public parking. Also on Third, there's another public parking that they can park at and walk over. But we don't offer customer parking in the back of the building. Nobody's permitted in that.
and so then as far as garbage and recycling, that's actually behind the rear building, correct? Not in that area?
No, the recycling and the garbage is behind, back of the second building, and it's been taken care of by the township. The garbage is by the township, the recycle is by the township.
Excellent. And then as far as deliveries, those are not made on site, right? They go stop on the street?
they park the car, they have the truck in the front, and they roll in all the deliveries.
Perfect, I think that gives us the background that we need. Does the board have any questions?
I have a question about the, about when you say second building, you're referring to the rear building and not the adjacent frontage building?
Okay. There is a building in the front, and then there's a building in the back. On the second floor is the recording studio.
So the second building, you meant the building in the back?
The building
Yeah.
in the back.
Just for consistency's sake and understanding. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Cohen? All right. You can proceed
Thank you.
with your next witness.
Next witness. Sir, do you swear? That's a little bit louder than I thought. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Would you be kind enough to state your name, spell your last name, and location of your offices, please?
Hi, good evening. My name is Mark Lieber, Mark with a C, Lieber, L-E-B-E-R. I'm with East Point Engineering in Marlboro.
Thank you, sir.
Can I just check that microphone?
Yeah, it's at the bottom.
Pretty well.
Oh, thank you.
Better. What do we think?
Yes,
There it is.
much better.
So can you briefly give the board the benefit of your background and qualifications as both engineer and a professional planner?
Yes, I graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering from Drexel University and completed the part-time MBA program at Rutgers Graduate School. I was licensed in 2003 as a professional engineer, in 2005 as a professional planner, and in 2006 I completed the Municipal Engineering Certificate program. Since then I've worked on both sides, public and private side of this business. Right now I'm totally on the private side, and I've testified before numerous boards, both planning and zoning, and I'm also a qualified witness in Superior Court.
Have you testified and been accepted in terms of your qualifications, both in terms of professional engineering and professional planning?
Yes, I have.
I have no other questions.
Any members of the board have any questions about the witness's qualifications? All right, you can proceed.
Excellent, thank you. So if you could just begin by giving us,
By the way, are these the same pictures that were submitted as part of the application, or are they different?
these are not.
These are taken today.
Then they're different. So are they, is it a package, do you want to mark them individually, or is it a package and then how you want to handle it?
Let's mark it as a package. It's 8 photos in total with a map on the front page.
All right, so it's A1, 8 photos, and then you'll identify each one, correct?
Correct. So before we get started, just a little background. This is block 1603 and it's lot 32. It's 229, 231 Raritan Ave, and it's in the CBD district. We took these photos this morning just so that everyone can see what the current conditions are on the property. On the first page, this is just a map from Google that shows each photo location and the direction that the photo was obtained. So if we go over to the next page, the photo on the top, this is the front of the building. See on the,
top one of the,
yeah, if you hold it this way,
ah,
so this would be the top photo,
okay.
top of the sheet. It's the front of the building, just take it from across the street. You'll see that Jerusalem Pizza is still covered in paper. That's because there's still work going on inside. The next photo, which is, I guess, to the left of that, shows the alleyway. That's about 10 feet wide, and it does span the property line. So the building you're looking at is only about 7.5 feet from the property line, but the entire width of that alley is about 10 feet. If you go to the next page, this is at the end of the alley, where you could see the white building in the background. That's our building you heard 2 minutes ago is behind us. And then the photo to the left of that is just a picture of that rear building. And you'll notice that the area between that building and the Jerusalem Pizza building is all concrete or asphalt. This site is almost entirely impervious. If you go to the next page, I'm sorry that this picture is backwards, but this is really me standing between the two buildings and just looking left. And you'll see that there's a large open area that extends behind numerous buildings along the side of the street. The next photo is really the most important photo in the application because that shows us the back of the front building, including the area that the work is proposed. If you look at that building, you'll see the right side's blue, the left side is white. And the proposed addition would be where the paint is white at ground level, it's a one-story addition. And then if you go to the last page, the photo on the right would be looking back down that access alley towards the street. You'll see, again, the back of the front building where the work is proposed. And then the last photo is actually taken 2 buildings down. There is another alley to access Raritan over there. I just wanted to show you what that looked like. That is not used at all by this applicant. It's rather narrow, but sometimes pedestrians will go through there to reach the back. So that being said, we had put together a set of plans. The architectural drawings submitted. The addition in the back is 12 feet by 14.7 feet, which is about 176 square feet. Again, it's really to service additional kitchen area. You heard the story about the fire and the need to expand the bathroom. Another aspect of the application is that prior to the fire, there were 40 seats in the restaurant. Now there's 30 seats proposed. So from a traffic and parking standpoint, nothing that's being done to this building generates additional parking because the way parking is calculated is based on seating. So we're actually reducing seating and we're adding kitchen space, which doesn't generate any public access. So other than that, there's no new signage proposed, no change in use proposed. Frankly, anybody passing by on the street would not even know this addition existed because it's totally hidden in the back. We even analyzed turning movements on our sheet 3 of our site plan set that depicts a vehicle that could drive back there and showing that this additional projection on the corner of that building does not hinder in any way a car from turning around and getting out. From a zoning perspective, there are a couple of existing nonconformities with the property. I could go through those just for the record. So we'll start off with minimum lot area, width, and depth. We comply with those items. There's some setback requirements for the front building. This is a 0 setback building, which complies with the CBD zone requirements. Where we don't comply is the setback for the rear building. We're required to have a 20-foot rear yard, and we have 8.4 feet. That's an existing nonconformity. We're good with building coverage, but all impervious surface, the zone requires no more than 90%, and our existing condition is 97.9%. And again, that would remain. We're good with our building height. It's a 2-story building. This zone allows a 4-story building. And gross floor area, we comply with that as well. Now, we did do a detailed parking calculation, and it indicated that, this site would theoretically generate a need for 37 spaces. But I did, put a bold note below that there are no parking spaces existing or proposed. It's a non-conformity that would remain, and that our kitchen expansion doesn't generate any additional parking demand. There were architectural drawings, which should be in your packets. And one of the drawings, which was sheet P03, showed rear elevations of what this would look like for a person just standing in the back.
No, that was all part of the plan, was it not? When I say part of the plan, part of the submission.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's fine, it's just a basic one-story addition with some vinyl siding in a neutral color. There's no windows, there's just a doorway, and the doorway leads out to the back. There is a doorway in the back of the building now. That door would, continue to facilitate movement, but there'd be a new door on the outside wall. So, just want to see if I skipped over anything.
So there's also in Mr. Genz's review memorandum discussed the potential need for exceptions.
Yes. So there are, and I'll just referring to his report dated February 4th. There are a couple items. I'm going to go to part 6.2, which starts at the bottom of page 3. Actually, it's 5.3. So I'm on section 5.3. So the first item is 230-157L, which is additions are encouraged to maintain sense of continuity through materials. The building's a masonry building. We were going to propose vinyl siding on the outside. It's not really visible to the public at all, and it's in a neutral color, which would complement the colors of the building once the building's finished. Part 230-158H, architectural treatment shall be continued around all visibly exposed sides of the building. Same story, it's just a vinyl sided outside exterior. And 230-158J is that horizontal coursing shall be continued all around all visibly exposed sides of the building. Well, I do agree with that. This addition is only 12 by 14, so there's really no opportunity to install any horizontal coursing or anything elaborate here. It's just a rectangle, to be honest.
I believe that's further emphasized by some of the photos we just went through.
Yeah. I do want to note that the Shade Tree Advisory Committee did send us a letter that requested a tree in between the two buildings. While I'm not opposed to planting trees, and we do like to propose trees in this particular instance, this entire area is impervious. There's no irrigation. It does not seem like an appropriate place to add a tree. So we would want relief or request relief from providing a tree back there. And frankly, my concern is that if somebody puts a tree back there, it's just going to die, whether it's through salt from snow removal or just lack of water or, being surrounded by a parking area, so to say. There are some large trees behind the property, which are on the property behind us, which from time to time have been trimmed, but those trees are visible in the cover sheet photo that I passed around before. And other than that, I don't know if there's any questions or if you need more detail on anything, I'll be happy to answer.
So with respect to the, thank you. With respect to some of the design standards, with the addition being vinyl, I think it's our position that we don't need exceptions from the design standards because ultimately there's an emphasis on the public's view shed in the design standards, and here we won't be able to see it. Also, the color palette is complementary. However, to the extent that an exception is required, we could meet it. We'd like to speak more about that.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at sheet P03, the architect's plan, this is just a small, unassuming bump out really to an existing building. And they are repainting the building. There were some openings that were closed up above, which are visible in those photos. And then that would be painted to be consistent in one color, because for the most part, almost the entire building's been renovated. So, they want it to be nice and clean.
And just to go back to those photos, I believe, I'm sorry, where we can see the back of the building, which is, let's see, the second to last page, that bottom. We see that there's also a little bump out where would be the back of China Lee, and if we think based on that color palette, they would be very similar.
Yeah,
So it would overall flow architecturally.
correct. And we're doing a very similar bump out on the other side.
And something that, Shalom could come back up to testify to is that there's a large price difference between trying to mimic the stone masonry of the rest of the building for such a small square footage. And, it would be impractical to, I think, enforce this on something that can't be seen by the public.
Are you finished with your witness?
Unless you have questions.
Just for clarity, your application said that the restaurant would maintain the 40 seating spaces that it previously had, but I think you testified it's going to be 30 seating spaces, which is it?
That might have been discussed after the thing was filed. I'm gonna check with, how many seats?
Yeah, that was before we noticed that we have to add. That was when we filed all the papers, but then after they added the restroom and we saw how much you have to move this way, move that way, that's what happened to the seats. We had to take away from the seats to
So-
be able to accommodate the rest of the counter.
I'm just trying to clarify, so your application writer needs to be amended from 40 seats to 30 seats? That's,
Yes, and in addition to that, there were other amendments that
Okay.
I just want to might be better for the applicant's sake, just maintain the 80 seats for the two properties combined. And whatever you can fit during construction is what you can fit, but just allow you to have the ability to have 40 seats going forward. Just be cleaner, less to change.
Yes, that sounds great.
all right, so we're coming around to the amending it to a statement that the two restaurants combined would have an 80-seat capacity. And right now, the one restaurant has 40 seats in it. That's what we're amending our statements to be for the application?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone have any questions?
So now I'm a little confused. Are you saying that the one restaurant has 40 seats and now you're going with the other restaurant that had 30 and now it's going to be 40? Or are you saying that the one restaurant is going from 40 to 30 and the other is going to be 50?
So I believe what we're saying is when we originally calculated the parking, it was based on there being 80 seats. So I think the idea is that the 80 seats will be a maximum, but currently, as the floor plans are progressing, last I heard, and Shalom testified to this, that there's still doing tiling. It appears that only 30 seats can be fit right now, but ideally, if 40 could fit that, I'm sure
Yeah.
that would be preferred.
Well, we'll take a step further. Before the fire, there were 40 seats in China Lee and 40 seats in Jerusalem Pizza, right?
Right.
So I think for purposes of site plan application, that's not changing. But in reality, there may be less seats. You may literally remove a seat, which you can do with or without permits. But in terms of whatever space is available for construction, they will construct whatever they think will fit.
So you're suggesting that the 80 is a reasonable number?
Yeah, if that's what existed before, then we should maintain that.
Keeping it on the list of the pre-existing conditions along with the lack of parking altogether that was pre-existing and the other non-conforming conditions that were, your testimony has been that they were all pre-existing. So the idea being, unless you are voluntarily saying that the new construction has to be limited to 30 seats within the restaurant, maybe maintaining 80 for the building as a pre-existing condition was the recommendation of the planner, and to me sounds pretty good on your behalf.
Understood.
And I just want to understand, I believe I do understand your position with regard to the pre-existing non-conforming variances. Are you suggesting also in your report, possibly that with regard to section 5.3, that those three design waivers, they can be waived?
My position would be the board would have to hear testimony that an exception can be granted. It sounds like you heard that, so I think the board can grant those exceptions. I think.
And
as
in your
counsel-
professional planning opinion, that doesn't do violence in your opinion to the site?
I believe that sufficient testimony has been given that it
Okay.
is practical.
Thank you. Got it.
All right. Any members of
Provided,
the- Oh, go
just
ahead.
one clarification though. So the photos show that the white brick facade is almost unfinished though. So can you clarify, maybe I misheard it, that's gonna be finished as the bluish color when it's completed?
That part we left because we weren't sure what we're gonna do with the rest of the wall.
Okay.
So we painted the whole building except that part. Once we know what's going on the bottom, we're gonna take care of the rest of the building, gonna be all the same color.
Is it all same color and your addition will generally match the color of the China Lee add-on? Like
Yeah.
that beige color?
Right.
And I think that's part of the reason to grant the exception.
Okay, and since I haven't, can you just tell me the color, it's gonna be one color that you're gonna end up having, correct?
Yes.
And just so the record, what is that color?
The building, the wall, the top is gonna be the same as the rest of the building.
That doesn't help me, because I don't know what the top looks like.
I would say it's like a muted blue color.
A muted blue, thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
But the
I think-
vinyl siding was going to be white.
Okay, so I would just like to confirm,
I'm not sure about that. We have to discuss. We
Okay.
didn't discuss that part yet.
So would the request be that the vinyl siding could either match the proposed blue paint that the rest of the building currently is, or white?
It can be beige, and it can be the same color as the other side. Yes,
All right, so beige, white like in the application, or the blue, one of the three colors is, or it's definitely beige.
it's probably gonna be the same color as the other side.
Okay, and the other side addition is the beige color?
Where the door is on China Lee.
This
Right here.
Because the application writer proposed white siding.
That's correct.
So would the request be that it could be one of any of the three colors?
But no more than
so
three,
I'm
right?
sorry, if we could, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
So I think the idea is that the whole building, including the additions, will all either be the same color or the two bump outs will match.
Match of
Whichever.
either beige or white, or not hot pink, or
Yeah, that- I
neon
mean, that-
green.
There has to be some general guidance, and
No, it will have to match. Either it will match the building or will match the other side.
And therefore, the building, you've already said, is going to be a muted blue, thank you very much. So it's either gonna be a muted blue, or the bump outs will be matching themselves, but then they will either be white or beige. As opposed to a pink or an orange, that's what we're trying to clarify. We don't wanna necessarily give you, and not that we're suggesting you do that.
I'm not trying to force you to have a white bump
You said
out,
you're
that's just
gonna
what was in
match.
your application.
You're gonna match the other beige bump out.
Perfect, thank you
Okay.
very much. Yeah, I know.
One of those three.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get, just that we're limiting it to one of those two. But I think that he's now testified that it's going to likely be, the bump out will be the same beige color that is currently in one of the pictures.
Definitely not hot pink.
Thank you very much.
Oh, rats. I like surprises.
Well, if it was in the front of the building, I might be encouraging something else. No, in my opinion, the muted blue color is quite lovely. All right, any comments from members of the board on the testimony from the applicant's planner? and
Yes,
engineer?
I had a question about vehicles in the back between the front building and the rear building. It looks like from the aerial photo on this first page here, that there is some use of the space between the two buildings for parking. I don't know if those are people who are working on fixing the building. I don't know when this photo was taken, if those were customers or people who were using the studio. But it seems to me that those vehicles might interfere with, I guess, the
Turnaround?
yeah, the turnaround on sheet 3. I've got the big version here. Unfortunately, my toddler scribbled on it when I wasn't looking. But just those vehicles seem pretty close to the drain inlet, and that inlet is right in the middle of that turnaround path.
Well, this picture was taken today. The middle,
That's from
This
Google.
one Google.
so that middle car is my car.
Which photo are you looking at?
Cover.
Then
This aerial image was taken today.
In between.
No.
No, sorry. So,
this one I think.
This one's taken
To be clear, I'm asking about the vehicles, it's a red vehicle and a sort of silvery topped vehicle on this map with the red arrows decorated.
It could have been that the people who are working at the store, at the construction, because they were parked the car over there. It could have been the tile people, but there definitely no other people are allowed back there. There's no customer parking.
So that, you would not have a problem therefore to indicate that that area between the two buildings would be not for customer parking, restricted against customer parking?
Exactly.
Okay, good.
Or employee parking, or resident parking, or your own parking.
It's all my parking. Only I park my car there and I come back and forth.
Okay,
So it would be limited to the, and you're the owner,
Yes.
and therefore it'd be limited to the owner's car parking?
Exactly.
Okay.
okay. Follow-up question, again, about vehicles in the back. I see that there's a, some sort of ramp between this property and the rear parking immediately to the west of it. Near the numeral 5 again on the aerial photo. It's also again on the site plan sheet 3. Are you aware of people, again, using vehicles to go in through one driveway and out through the driveway adjacent to the building, one front to the left,
And then that.
west,
Does anyone ever come out?
near arrow 8?
But right across where the red number 5 is on the front sheet. Does anyone drive from your
Does
lot?
anyone ever come out
No,
here?
no,
It's too narrow.
no, it's too narrow for a car to get to it. Otherwise, we could have like, how do you call it, going in this way and coming out that way. But that's too narrow.
Just to confirm, I'm referring to the driveway indicated by the red numeral 8 with an arrow.
Yeah, that's on the last page, that picture.
Yes. Okay, nobody uses that for
No,
vehicles
that-
regulations.
That's too narrow.
Okay,
That's also not your property.
right.
right.
The one to the left of that building is not.
So if a vehicle was going to go into the back and out, they would have to come back the same way they came in.
Yeah,
So they'd need to turn around or do kind of an unsafe back up into Route 27.
nobody backs up. First
Right,
of
they
all,
need to
nobody-
turn around,
They have to turn around inside.
meaning,
But I also own the building next to it. So there's a big parking lot back there in case somebody needs to turn around. They can go in there, turn around and come back up.
sorry, which next to it are you referring to?
The driveway that you were talking about,
Mhm.
Oh,
that's also my building,
Oh, it is?
one to the right.
to the left.
Okay, so two
So-
contiguous parking areas, or
Yeah.
not parking areas. if we're-
There's parking areas there too.
Okay,
So in case you want to get out, you can go down there, turn around and come back up.
all right, that's actually very reassuring. Thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant or the applicant's professionals? Did you have anything further you wanted to present to the board?
I think that's it. We just wanted to emphasize that, this is a small project just to get Jerusalem Pizza back up and running after it's been out of business for a year now, and we look forward to hopefully seeing them back in business.
Okay, I'm just going to make a comment for anyone who is following along at home that because this is an application for a site plan approval, we are not taking public comments by Zoom on the matter. If you do want to ever contribute or make public comments on a hearing, you need to be physically present here at the meeting. So we always encourage people to come down in the future. So if there are any members of the public present who wish to be heard on this application or ask questions of the applicants, I will open up the matter to public comments for anyone physically present here at the meeting. Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion on this application. And with that,
Unless, Chris, you have anything further to add? I always like to give you the opportunity for the last word.
thank you.
We heard commentary that it would be impractical to put trees, even one tree, into the rear yard area. We're really the rear paved area between the two buildings. Did you say anything about the rear of the rear building, basically along the property line?
There are existing trees there that are rather large, but they don't belong to this property owner, they're behind us.
Is that on the property to the rear? Because on the plans, it's all concrete.
So, yes, so it's not on the subject property, and something that Shalom could testify to is that he's had to call because
The right behind the two buildings, there are a lot of trees, big, huge trees. I recently had to call to have them chopped so it doesn't hit the building, damage the building.
Trimmed.
Trimmed,
There you go.
yes. So they were all trimmed, most of them were trimmed so it doesn't damage the building.
Have an adverse effect on the building, I got it.
Right.
So our concern is that if more trees were to go back there, that it would either die underneath the larger trees or create the same issue but closer.
Trees, all these trees, all of these are all trees.
And the 8.4 feet behind the second building is currently paved. It's not dirt. So
It's
the
a
pave would have to be,
Concrete area.
it's concrete. It would have to be demolished in order to even consider planting trees in that space.
There's just not enough light.
Yep. And then just to clarify a comment that was made regarding the, I guess we'll call it alley or driveway on the building on lot 31, which is the property to the west. I thought I heard a comment that it's too narrow for cars through, but I think in reality, just there's some circulation that goes through. Because I think I've driven back there myself when we looked at redevelopment at one point. So I guess the question is how do cars on lot 31 exit or even enter the property?
They come through 231, through
So when you say 231, you're referring to your property?
my property,
Okay. The subject property.
the SY serial. They come through there, they go back there.
Okay. Should we close off that driveway that's not being used then? Just to make sure no one accidentally uses
No,
it?
that has to be open for the fire department.
I'm just a little confused there.
Yeah, we've got a drawing right here. Can we refer to the,
Because on the drawing where your Jerusalem Pizza is, you say you're the only one that uses that entrance and exit. So the cars behind the other building, he just said exit through that one.
If I can clarify, I believe, so in response to your review memorandum, you wanted to know what this area was used for because it appears that there's parking there. So the testimony was that the only person who's permitted to park back there is Mr. Cohen. However, people are using this driveway to get to that parking lot. But in the direct area between the two buildings, only Mr. Cohen is permitted to park, and it is not for customer parking.
So he just didn't say they exit out through
Yes, so
231?
that is used as a path, but I think we were trying to specifically address the parking that was going on in that area. I apologize for the confusion.
would it be possible to indicate with paint on that surface for nobody to park there? So that we don't have, again, an issue of that one egress for both properties being obstructed by a combination of someone who's parking there and the bump out from this proposed addition.
So, what, you're talking about that parking lot between the two buildings?
No, I think you're talking about the area behind, in between the front and back building,
Yes.
and having some kind of marking that indicates that there's no parking permitted.
Yes, because I'm not
On the
trying to
side.
offer testimony, but I did see vehicles in that area as I walk past, because it's in the neighborhood. So I want to be sure that there's no circulation, that what we're discussing reflects reality and not, oh, there's some illicit parking there that is unknown to the applicant, but known to, say, a resident or a tenant.
Perhaps a solution would be to determine a single parking space that is out of, let's say, the turnaround radius or something like that, that establishes that's where people park, and it says only by whomever, and then if it's used as a turnaround and or a cut through to the other, that wouldn't, I don't think, impact anything. But I think the best thing would be to establish your parking space by a certain
By
means.
painting, by lines.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that way, there's no confusion, and then if somebody is there's parking there that shouldn't be, and you're parking there, and then things it'll make things clear, and because we want to get it's good to have a restaurant back up, and the fact that you're putting in compliant bathroom is great. So I think that would be a solution that would kind of make things clear. Because as we can see from the comments, we're unclear of who's going where and what's going what. This is one parking space for owner only or designated, boom, and the rest is no parking to allow for egress and or.
Yeah, if it's a current alley to enter the property, it's already striped for no parking. So we're just looking for a way to just clarify how people are using this. It protects people who are accidentally entering the property, and hopefully makes the fire department happy too.
Yeah, there could be another solution. That's just a suggestion.
It's not a problem.
And not a terribly expensive one either.
Just
I can provide a plan for that.
and one other question, since the building is related to the circulation, trying to protect people, I also want to try to protect buildings. I believe on your plans you show bollards. Can you clarify you will be installing bollards?
Yes.
Okay.
That's on the plans.
The bollard descriptions are on the plan.
Right, I didn't hear testimony, I just want to make sure it wasn't like, oh, well, we didn't talk about it, we're not going to do it, so I just want to make sure.
Well, any approval is going to be subject to the review, to the inclusion of the plans, both architectural and otherwise.
Yep.
Yep, safety yellow filled with solid concrete, 6-inch diameter.
Thank you. Madam Chair, if there's no other questions by members of the board.
Just since we covered some additional testimony on various topics, are there any other comments? All right, I am going to open it up to commentary to the public once again, just to make sure we're covered since we covered new topics.
For
So
people that are here.
For people that are physically present, so if there's any members of the public who wish to be heard on this additional testimony that we took, they can come up. Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion on the additional testimony. And with that, I think we can proceed on formulating a motion on this application.
And I think that the motion would be for the approval, subject to the following conditions, and they would be a recognition of the fact that the quote-unquote pre-existing nonconformities are not being adversely impacted, and therefore they are not, requiring to end up having proofs and therefore additional testimony or there's no additional requirement for additional variance requirements. With regard to the design standards, however, there is testimony that has been provided and that those design standards based upon that testimony can be waived. In addition, in terms of the conditions that I saw anyway, had to do with the fact that there would be a confirmation that the building itself would be a muted blue. I'll make sure it's muted blue. And also that the bump outs would be a beige color that would be either exactly or very similar to the beige color that's shown in the photographs that were submitted as A1. There would also be, a requirement that the area between the front and the rear building would be utilized specifically only for one parking space designated for the owner, and that it would be signed or designated as such by way of painting, and that there will be also a clear indication that it would not be available for either customers or employees. And I think that would be the conditions that I saw or that I heard, unless there's any others that either of you gentlemen or any members of the board may have in addition to it.
Yeah? Okay. Seeing none, would anyone like to make a motion to approve subject to those conditions? Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, excuse me, I just didn't want to forget that we discussed about the 80 seats as well.
Oh, yes, that the application is being
Yeah,
amended
that's fine.
from 40 seats for the restaurants to 80 seats for the building covering both restaurants.
Thank you.
All right, would anyone like to make a motion subject to those conditions?
Motion. Second.
All right, we take a roll call, please.
Mr. Brescher?
Yes.
Mr. Chin?
Yes.
Mr. Linares? Oh, sorry, Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Stern Cardinal?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Ham?
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming out.
Good luck with the restaurant addition.
Thank you so much, I appreciate it.
All right, and with that, Mr. Hale, if you'd like to come back to our board meeting. All right, we have two final items on our agenda. We have some meeting minutes and some discussion on the rules and regulations of our board. I think we should tackle the rules and regulations amendments first. All right, we have rules of order, believe it or not, that govern how our board operates. I may not always feel that way, but they do exist. And we haven't changed them in many, many years, according to how many times we've readopted these particular minutes. But with technology changing, we are trying to move along with the times. Now that we have Zoom participation available for members of the public, we would like to make our meetings more accessible to commentary for members from home, but we face some challenges due to the nature of our board and our quasi-judicial roles that we undertake on things like applications for site variances, where we do need to create a record when we take testimony on certain matters. So there are certain types of matters we can hear and hear commentary from the public at home, and there are certain types of matters where people need to be physically present because we have to take testimony to create a record of the proceedings. That's for the protection of both the applicant, members of the public, and this board. So in order to do that, we've received a suggestion from our attorney with some recommendations for amendments to our rules to allow for members of the public to make comments on items that are not for hearings involving amendments to the master plan, applications for development, or other development applications, but other kinds of matters members of the public can participate in. I recognize it's going to be very confusing for a while what matters can be testified to remotely, which are none. All testimony must be here, but what matters don't require testimony, we can solicit commentary from the public at home. For example, these minutes don't require testimony, so we can solicit commentary from the public through Zoom. We are, again, in a unique position as opposed to a lot of other boards in that situation, that we do take that testimony, so we have these restrictions on Zoom participation.
Just a
Yes.
question for myself. The
Absolutely.
difficulty with testimony is the identification of the person calling in over Zoom or something like that. Is that the real issue?
Well, it's a combination of things, Pedrick. It's the fact that that's one. That is certainly one. It is also the fact that when you end up having somebody who ends up wanting to make not just testimony, but a presentation, they are at home with whatever it is that they want to present, and all you're seeing is something on a screen, which may or may not be as adequate as being here.
Okay.
And that's where the difference comes, in my estimation, between what ends up happening at a board meeting and what happens at a council meeting, generally speaking.
I'm only doing this in the case of to get in as much, let's say, feedback is always a good thing. Could you not qualify a person's comments as simply that or opinion rather than?
But I'd love to be able to do that, but unfortunately, as an attorney, I can't, because anytime that you end up having an application for development, or you have something that's a noticed application, such as a master plan, re-examination report, or some other, or for that matter, the reference with regard to the adoption or the reference by the governing body back here to a redevelopment plan, those matters are matters that are noticed, and therefore testimony is taken. And just like when the applicant comes in, as today, they are under oath, and therefore you need to have the members of the public under oath as well. And you can say, well, okay, you put them under oath and then they can talk. Yeah, you can, but unfortunately what ends up happening sometimes is that they then want to make a presentation, and we can't really tell on the fly what they're really planning on doing. So therefore, in my humble opinion, it's up to you guys, but in my humble opinion, to avoid that potential problem, if you really have an interest in an application, it seems to me worthwhile for that individual to be here and then make that presentation so that they can end up seeing what the presentation actually is, better than just simply on camera and being able to make their comments and present whatever they need to present live and in person.
Not to mention, if a member of the public wishes to provide adverse commentary or testimony to an application, the applicant has to have the right to cross-examine. And frankly, having an applicant in front of us trying to cross-examine a video screen, if it's even working, is...
No, it was mostly a point for clarification, and if, as time goes on, we get a lot of feedback from the public, rules can change next year, so.
Yeah.
This is also true. We can, as technology continues to evolve, we can approach it as an attorney myself. I'm also very aware that should we pass something that is then brought to Superior Court for review, having a full and complete record, again, protects both the applicant and the person who opposes any action we've taken.
I mean, on the way down, I was listening to stuff, and I mean, this may seem a little far-fetched. You want to end up having testimony from a live person, not an AI image.
No, I understand.
I mean, I understand that sounds silly. It certainly sounds silly to me, but unfortunately, it seems like it might be the way, not I don't want to say the wave of the future, but an opportunity for the future.
No, I'm a big proponent of getting off the couch and getting down to the Borough Hall, so.
Yes. And I very much want increased participation from members of the public. I want to hear from members of the public. I'm just very aware of the record we create when we have a quasi-judicial hearing in front of us. So when we take commentary on, for example, whether or not ordinances are in compliance with the master plan or not, that is not something we need testimony for. That is something we can solicit commentary from members of the public regarding that. But an applicant who sits in front of us and is making a case for their waivers, we need opposition to also be present, I believe. So, yes.
Brief comment on this. I remember during the height of the pandemic when we were strictly on Zoom for whatever period of time that was, and we were doing the thing where you were swearing people in over Zoom. And I remember it was kind of an awkward process because people were used to, for example, commenting at the council meetings where you would just name and address and then you just go. Mm-hmm. But we also did make it work for that time, and I like these changes because I think it's it's moving the ball in the right direction in terms of accessibility. I do kind of like what Pedrick said. I would like to revisit this next year and be able to open it up further to be able to formally take testimony. And in terms of preserving a record, I do also like that when it's on Zoom, there is that handy record button. So we have a word-for-word record of everything that happens, whether it's in the room or over Zoom.
Well, you have a recording, whether you have it on a video or you have it on tape that we're taping. So the reality is that there's already a recording.
Right. So we have So I think having a record is
required.
Yes, and that's not something that doing it over Zoom adversely affects. We have the recording. Except
when technology goes down. And I'm not going to comment because I don't particularly.
Also,
I have my positions on technology.
Also, related to the presentation and in terms of like something like this, right? If there's been cases where a member of the public comes in and says, "Can I hand this to the board?" Right? So, would there be a way to limit public comment, even if it's testimony? right? To say you can provide verbal testimony, but you can't provide physical media, you can't provide, right, you can't provide, I don't know what the right word would be, right?
The physical presentation.
Right, you can't provide a presentation, but you can provide verbal testimony.
I'd like to think that that could go smoothly. What I have found over the course of my career is that, and people should not be expected to have the sophistication to be able to follow the rules that we expect of them. And with all due respect, most of them don't. So as a result, you end up having a situation where they come in and they end up, the engineer testifies, Mr. Lieber testifies. And then you say, oh, does anybody have any questions? And invariably, there is a scintilla of a question.
More of a comment.
And the rest of it is testimony. And so there's that. And then there's the assumption that they will not then, that they will then in fact abide by the responsibility of not presenting something physically. Now that generally doesn't happen that often, but I am concerned that members of the public, not because they're not sophisticated, they're just not sophisticated in this process, and nor should they be, and I don't think we should expect them to be. But we do have a process, and it does require a certain level of understanding of what's going on, and then the right of the applicant to be in a position to properly respond and get its fair share to have cross-examination. So for all those reasons, I feel as though if you, sort of like Pedrick, at least I'll go with one part of what Pedrick said, and that is, let's encourage people to get off the couch and into the meeting if they really think they've got a problem.
I agree, but just one more quick thing related to this, and tonight's application is a good example of this, because one of the kind of background reasons for this application that we heard was the renovation of the bathroom to be an accessible bathroom, right? If somebody who is going to comment on accessibility related to a particular application, variance, whatever, they might not be able to physically get here, but they should have the same ability to provide testimony and not just comment as anybody else. And so as much as I agree and love having people in the room, we do need to recognize that people can't always be in the room, and
I agree.
Also
and,
testify.
You know, the good news is that this particular municipality has made an effort to try to make people who have issues, physical issues, have the ability to get here, so that there are not physical barriers, as you know. That doesn't necessarily mean that people, for example, who end up having, hearing problems or sight problems, that's somewhat of a different issue, and I understand that. I'm not necessarily sure how that gets addressed, whether it be by virtual hearings or being in person. So I'm not smart enough to figure that out.
Like I said, thank you. I like these changes. I would like to find ways to open them up more in the future when possible.
And that's always the possibility.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to weigh in on the proposed amendments? I think from the feedback I'm hearing is that we're all in a general consensus that the proposed language is an excellent step forward and a good step for the upcoming year. So with that, I'll solicit a motion to adopt the amendments to our rules and regulations of the planning board.
So moved.
Second. And include the amendments in the adoption of those rules for 2025.
And include the amendments in the adoption of our rules for 2025. Motion by Pedro, seconded by, was it Dan or Alvin? Alvin? Okay,
Yep.
Seconded by Alvin. So we'll take a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Brusha?
Yes.
Mr. Chen?
Yes.
Mr. Hal?
Yes.
Mr. Malay?
Yes.
Mr. Stern Cardinal?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Ms. Hand?
Yes. Okay. We'll have,
Yeah,
okay. So,
I didn't see this. I didn't realize that two people.
oh, I didn't either.
I did, so I'll do that.
We'll do it at the very end. All right, we have one more action item on our list, and that is approval of our January 9th, 2025 minutes, if I can find them in the pile of paperwork I've got in front of me while I'm running around looking for it. Do any members of the board have comments on the proposed January 9th minutes?
I think Planner Cosenza's name is misspelled in the first roll call box. That's,
I agree with you.
but other than that, I have no further things to mention.
We finally got Kalitra right. We got Cosenza right. One step forward.
I thought you said they spelled Miss Hand wrong.
That's tough. It's happened, but that's a tough one. Anyone else have any other comments about the minutes? Is this one a roll call vote too?
No, you don't need a roll call.
All right.
You don't want to.
We take a voice vote. Sorry, I need a motion. Can I have a motion to approve the January 9th, 2025 minutes?
So moved.
Motion by Matt Hale,
Second.
second by Dan Stern Cardinal. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
And then stay.
Abstain.
One abstention?
Also abstain.
Two
Well,
abstentions.
wait.
Does that cause a problem with the number of votes?
No, but what it does is you cause a problem, so you seconded that.
Oh, I can't second a motion? Oh, I apologize.
Wait, we gotta roll back our motion here.
I apologize, that was
Can
my
I,
fault.
can I have a second?
No, can't have a second.
Second from Alan Williams. Well, I'll reaffirm my aye. Is there-
Me too.
Aye.
Ayes reaffirmed, okay, and then abstentions,
And Dan.
we've got
Abstain.
Dan and Pedro. All right, and no nays. All right, very good, so those minutes pass, thank you very much. And with that, I will open up the meeting to members of the public, whether at home on Zoom or here. Anybody? All right, seeing no members wishing to be heard, I'll close the public portion of our meeting. Any other matters anyone on the board wants to talk about? Anything on your mind? Nothing? All right, with that, I'll solicit a motion to adjourn. Anyone want to hang out with me? No one wants to go?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
You two guys, I didn't realize this. It turns out it's in my